before the election are very, very weak. But that could change in the next 4 weeks as information comes in, and 2 or 3 committee chairs decide they want to process the bill. So Max Baucus on the Senate Finance Committee, if Lance Lincoln on the Ag Committee, or Jeff Bingaman on the Energy Committee, if they decide they want to process the bill, those odds change. And then when I was in government, in 8 years in government, 4 massive pieces of environmental energy legislation passed the Congress at the end of the session. One was brownfields in 2002, one was the Healthy Forest Bill in 2003, the Magnuson-Stevens Fishing Bill in 2005, and the Energy Bill in 2007. By the way, each one of these bills, if we were sitting here today at this moment in time, were declared dead. 0 chance of passage. And yet, at the end of the session, they miraculously reappeared, and there was a big deal at the end. So anything's possible in Washington, perhaps sadly. Wait is a year of added cost and uncertainty. It gives the folks into the markets, the market design, gives them real problems. And so we shouldn't sit here and accept what's going on in Washington. We need more education of this entire enterprise. Every one of you out here should try to understand the basics of this and talk about why we need it. Because then we create a future for coal, we've got gas, we create a future for all of these investment choices. But it's one that we can make rational. And so I'm saddened that we would say it's low chance of passage, because we really need it.
It's timing.
There's never a good time as what happens in Washington. We've been at this cap and trade for power in the power sector has been discussed since 1996. There's been a bill every year since 1996. And everyone says next year will be better. Next year's the year.
I actually think this is the best time for it. I mean, it's a shame that other things keep coming up that distract politically from it. But I completely agree with you, and I would say, it is everybody sitting in this room. We all should be trying to push for it. We can't give up. We're not going to give up as we move into this the summer and toward the election season, because you don't know what will happen. I mean, here in the irony, from my perspective, our perspective, Billy, is that here's an industry asking to be regulated, saying, please regulate us. Maybe that's why some people don't trust it. It's too good a deal. We have to do a better job of explaining to people why the consequences of not doing this are so severe.
Well, the coal states were the ones that were going to be hit hard in the waxing monarchy. The question is, we haven't heard from them yet about what their points of view are about this. So, we're right at the very beginning of this discussion.
The coal states, the coal companies, the coal predominant companies, though, were part of the EEI consensus. To the extent this largely meets what they've sought, we're starting in a good place. So we just have to see these edges. Now, at Constellation, we actually, because we have a joint venture with the French on our nuclear plants, our fleet balance we're like the average fleet now. And we've looked at that, and this is critical for us. And so in terms of our average profile, because half of our nukes are attributed to the French now, it looks good to us. Now, there's some things we have to fix. There's some significant flaws in this design that have to be fixed, but this is headed where it needs to be, and those can be worked out.
Okay.
50%, 50%. And that was very carefully thought through to balance all the economic and fairness and regional issues, and then with a 50% allocation for merchant emissions. And that's the operating position of the Edison Electric Institute. My view is when you've got a sector as big as that has carefully worked out all of the balances and come to you and said this works best, why second guess it? And so I think we'll continue to position that EEI will be 50-50. Some are better off 75-25, some are a little worse off 75-25. So you're just reinitiating the negotiation. It probably doesn't need to happen. Under any scheme, 50-50, 75-25, there has to be a merchant component because of the way the market works. Otherwise, you create a significant distortion and a pretty significant lack of fairness in the way the markets are designed. So that has to be, that's still not clear in the design of the bill. But we've collectively understood, by the way, the bigger issue is not this distribution of allowances. The bigger issue is, does the sector start with a full slate of allowances? And if the sector starts with a full slate of allowances equal to our emissions, then some of the differences in these formulas are mitigated. So those who are advocating for 75-25, there's less reason to advocate for it if there's a full slate of allowances. If our sector was short allowances, like it was under the Waxman-Markey bill, well then you go up to the end of the cost curve and you do get price spikes. And so that's why then you push for something like 75-25. So I hope that as we evaluate the bill, we see how it's levelized things, it is a yearly full slate of allowances. Some of the pressure to push into different zones is mitigated, but that, people have to see the math. People won't believe it until they see it. So we're all working on analysis internally. We're all looking for the EPA analysis. But I hope that it's rare. I did public policy in the government for 8 years. I can't recall, I guess with one exception, which was sulfur diesel, taking diesel out of sulfur out of diesel fuel, where the industry sector came together with the NGOs and said, please regulate us this way on this time frame. And there's no lawsuit, perfect implementation. That's the only time I'm aware of that's occurred, and now we have that opportunity again in the power generation sector, where they've said, please regulate us this way on this time frame, and you'll get all your goals. In my view as a policymaker, when somebody hands you everything you're looking for, you're supposed to say yes as a regulator. And so there's been a little bit of a challenge there. The Senate bill is certainly much better in that respect.